Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. We're going to be talking about Palantir Technologies and what could possibly be happening in the short term here versus the long-term perspective that I've personally had myself. Now, what we see is down about 3% of the day, a little bit of a pullback as we've seen resistance at that 38. And we're continuing to see here in the overnight hours a little bit of selling. What this could possibly mean, and we're going to be kind of continuing on with the subject of yesterday's video, is what we did notice, and that was a lot of bearish articles coming to the limelight, and we're seeing a shift in momentum. And we saw that with the options, and we see that with just what's being said. Also, on top of that, we've seen insiders that have been selling, some of the key players in Palantir, some of the key stakeholders, and that also brings uncertainty, even though there can be many different reasons why insiders sell, and we've talked about this before. However, with the market that's still closing at record close, and I think NVIDIA did a really good job holding the market at these high records, on top of the federal funds rate, of course, that we know that 50 basis point interest rate cuts, we have some uncertain times ahead because we are seeing pinpoints or signs that the economy is cooling, and the Fed is trying to time out the soft landing, hoping that this actually comes to fruition. So we're going to be talking about everything you need. If you're new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, not a financial advisor, collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Palantir Technologies closes here at 36.90. Now, we saw that resistance at about the 38. One key point to remember here is that Palantir is trading at yearly highs and near all-time highs. We haven't seen these price levels for Palantir for a few years now, and specifically as we return to these price zones, how do we rely on those, previous historical patterns? And I don't know if we really can rely on those previous historical patterns. So what we have in front of us right now is Palantir seeing some support at the 36s, and that's where this is kind of going towards right now. If we look over here on the overnight hours, Palantir's at 36.66, down about another 24 cents in the after hours. We could continue to see a little bit of selling pressure. I think that 36 is going to be tested in terms of support. You got the 33, and then a really big reversal and support zone is at the 30. We've seen very important reversals being triggered at this level. Now, I don't think we're going to 30 tomorrow, but if we see any types of shift within the market in terms of selling pressure, options, we have a decent amount of put activity that has increased, still a decent amount of calls. So it's pretty even right here, looking at the volume and trading volumes at 79 million. That's basically what it was yesterday. Now, looking at some of the articles right here, you see one on Seeking Alpha talking about insiders are selling, and the title of this article is saying, so am I. One of the biggest justifications now with Palantir, after we've seen the inclusion effect, the rebalance taking place for PLTR, is some of that momentum, some of the hype starting to trickle a little bit on top of the uncertainty that is also correlated with the general economy. And buying Palantir at $37 per share, that sounds pretty expensive. However, we've seen the technical momentum and a lot of players that have continued to push the stock higher. And I think we've seen institutional investments that have started to have that FOMO type effect, buying Palantir really no matter what the price is, because I think it's going to be higher in the future. Of course, the valuation right here, this article talks about, has detached from its financial realities, but Palantir is always traded at high valuation. It's the biggest criticism. Anybody that has a bearish position or perspective on PLTR, the number one reason is going to be its valuation. And of course, that's not something that we should completely throw out the window. Personally, I don't know if it's crazy important, because Palantir is going to continue to grow into its valuation. A lot of these AI stocks and even assets in general are kind of trading at high valuations. Just look at what NVIDIA has done in the previous few years and trying to navigate profitability. That's what a lot of investors are more concerned about right now. The big thing that I think, not just a valuation that's causing the shift right here, could be possibly what we're seeing from the insiders and the big stakeholders within PLTR. This article goes into running all these different types of models and analysis. We're not going to bore everybody to death with that, but talking about that, what are we seeing in reality versus predicting? And that is that we're starting to see insiders that are selling. Alex Karp here, talking about that, sells worth over 300 million, about 8.7 million PLTR shares. And you also have the co-founder right here filed a new trading plan to sell up to 28.5 million shares, worth up to about $1 billion in the near future. Insiders are going to sell for multiple reasons. Profit taking is a freedom that everybody should, of course, have at their in the toolbox. With insider selling, there can be many different reasons, such as raising capital, such as taxable reasons, of course, however, that the emotion, and I think a lot of the investors pinpoint to that, oh, if the investors are selling, then that must mean that they know something that we don't. So what's the uncertainty going ahead? And that does cause some FUD across the market, regardless if Palantir is going to go up in price or down in price. That's why personally, just in the short term here, I could see Palantir that does continue in my own price prediction, having a little bit of a pullback, testing possibly that 36s, and then that 33s if that support zone is not held. However, talking about the long term here, and you have this quote here saying, talking about just buy it now and put it away. And what Palantir has really been doing is a wonderful job in terms of its earnings reports, in terms of expansion with AIP, getting on board many commercial clients, and also continuing to establish those governmental contracts. Right here, Jay Woods from Freedom Capital Markets comes out and says, following the jump of the S&P 500, also kind of agrees with what we're kind of predicting in the short term, saying I would buy on any pullback. However, if you're looking to long term, just buy it now and put it away. Basically saying long term position, we're talking 5-10 years down the line. Palantir right now could be relatively cheap. And that's where the timeline of your particularly investment is really important, because what's the price that you think the individual stock should be? Or do you think the ETF should be, or where the market thinks, where you think it should be at? That should help, be a deciding factor for you to do your own due diligence and make your own decision. We're seeing the revenue of PLTR that's continuing to rise, and I think AIP is going to continue to expand across the board. So just what's the price that investors are willing to pay for PLTR right now? That's the variable. And that's where we lead into the market right here, specifically what's happening. We got the S&P 500 that's still continuing to pose record highs. However, one of the big culprits I think that helped push the broader market up was the shares of AI darling. We know NVIDIA here climbing nearly 4%. And this is just because, talking about insiders, the CEO wrapped up his sale of the chip maker stock. So all these big stocks that are accumulating a lot of market capitalization. You also have here the CEO of NVIDIA selling a lot of shares and just basically saying he's done for the time being. That was enough to cause a bullishness to push NVIDIA up about 4%. One big thing that we're seeing, though, consumer confidence suffered its biggest 1 month decline in more than 3 years. So in terms of that, we're also seeing China stocks out here Tuesday following stimulus efforts helping to bring economic growth. So stimulus right there. You're seeing some of the US-based shares like Alibaba and things like that are continuing to climb. What we did have being shrugged off was the reports that we are starting in terms of macroeconomic data. I don't remember what the specific report was. I have to pull it back up, but that was basically shrugged off from NVIDIA. So talking about uncertainty in the markets, I think that is still there. I want to know your guys' opinion down in the comments. What do you think about PLTR in the short term versus the long term? You think we're going to see that pullback, or do you think the 40s could be tested here by the end of the week? We could have a reversal, and that would be great for the bulls out there. Peace out. Take care. I'll catch you guys later tomorrow.